Hi, it's Jason Heath, and I had a great time connecting with Pascale Delache-Feldman, Emmanuel Feldman, and Victor Cayres for the podcast. They have a very cool tango album that was just released called Let's Tango, and in this conversation, we talk with all three of them about tango, the story behind this album. Hope you enjoy, and links to everything are in the description below. Well, so bravo to all three of you. The album is awesome. Like, what fun music to dig into. I was just telling Victor that I've done a very limited amount of tango playing here in San Francisco. They've got a pretty good tango scene, but I mean, talk about fun and fun for all of you. And Emmanuel, you're sort of like channeling the violin role and kind of like your traditional tango, right? For a lot of this.
Yeah, we were listening back to the old Piazzolla recordings on YouTube. You know, it's just like, God, I've got to learn to slide like that.
Well, there's so much in the vernacular of tango that's not really on the page, or at least not in the bass part. I had to get together with a bassist here in San Francisco and kind of get some lessons with him on exactly how those techniques work. And as the bass player, what fun to be this percussion bass line, kind of the interplay with the left hand of the piano.
Yeah. Some of them, we learned what it is, like latigo. It's like a whip sound, you know. Whip. That's latigo. And then when Pascal's hitting on the double bass, that's the golpe de cajo. Victor, help us. How do you say this? It's golpe de caja.
We were just playing some tango bass quartets here in San Francisco. Andres Martin, who hails from Argentina, he was in town and has a lot of arrangements. And I was asking a lot of like, am I doing this right? And he's like, yeah, it's great. It's all good. But talk about, I have so much fun spending time with him and sort of that spirit of tango that's kind of infused in all of his music. It's just delightful to play.
Yeah. What were you guys playing? Like,
well, we were playing some Piazzolla because, of course, and I'm blanking on what exactly, because we played several Piazzolla arrangements of his over the years. This was a bar gig, and I can't remember exactly what we were playing for that. And then we've done some of his own tangos. He's got this great trio tango called Marcas de Pasión that for bass trio, he and myself and I think Aaron Olguin played it at the ISB convention in Indiana. And what fun to work on, and not easy. I just absolutely love the music, and I love it's just a absolutely fun, super fun album. It must have been great to put together. How long have the three of you been connected?
Before the project, so probably Victor remind us, but I think it was like around 2016.
Yeah, I think that's
even this. I used to play for Emmanuel students at the prep school, and then I was a kid back then. Then later on, I think I was applying for a job and recorded a Brahms sonata with Emmanuel. That's how we reconnected.
That's right.
Oh, it was amazing. After that, it was just an avalanche. Jason, we recorded the Brahms F major sonata, and I don't think I can think of a more archetypal performance. I love what I did with Victor and what Victor did together with me. We just sat down and did it. We really didn't have much rehearsal, but it doesn't sound like that. I really love that recording. So it was sort of explosive. We had to do other things after that together.
Yeah,
it was. Interject, sorry, I looked it up. It's golpe de caja or golpe de caja.
Okay.
Pascal.
Oh yes, I was just saying that watching both Victor and Emmanuel playing together, it was like no brainer. It's like we have to have him for the tango work we wanted to do, and it was just a very natural. The synergy was amazing between all three of us.
Yeah, we just played with Victor at a music festival, and what I can say about Victor is like, he is a spicy player. He is, and when you get together with him, it's like the tempo, and this is perfect also for tango. It's not like it's all going to be exactly metronomic. There's a sort of a flexibility that's very intuitive and very, very exciting to be able to collaborate with somebody and you can trust. If Victor in the concert's going to take a big curve, it's going to be easy to go with him. I'm serious. So that's super exciting.
I think it's just mutual too.
Yeah, too. A few curves or some risks.
But I must add, without Pascal though, I think Pascal accountability, responsibility, and balance to the group. If you leave Emmanuel and I alone in the room, there's no everything's loud and fast and exciting. And she comes and like, okay, guys,
Like,
let's
hey guys,
score.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. That's a really interesting because there is that flexibility in tango. I remember years ago, we've all played waltzes, but then I remember being at a music festival and members of the Vienna Philharmonic did a waltz concert together. I'm like, oh, now
Oh,
that's
yes.
how we play a waltz. And yeah, it's so interesting that flexibility in tango and just the virtuosity that everybody gets to have in the art form. I mean, Pascal, I love your bass lines going through. I mean, the way that all three of you musically react to each other on the album is great. I'm sure it's a lot of fun live too. When did tango come into your lives, each of you? Is it relatively
Oh,
new or been for years and
no.
years or?
For me, growing up in France, tango is very popular since the 20s. So yeah, I heard it all my childhood. It was something that is exotic and exciting and sensual, and it fits very well with the French culture. So yeah, I just loved it. I always loved it. And when I started playing it, I'm like, oh, I have to do this more. I remember, I played a transcription I made of one of the flutes etude for the ISB convention in San Francisco. And I remember there was Juan Pablo Navarro was there. And I was like, I have to play for him because he knows that stuff. And it was so nice to really give the permission to be really to have that flexibility. He was explaining to me how, he said, Argentina is the only Latin American country where people cry. They cry and you have to do, you don't even need to be with the piano. You just kind of stretch and expand and don't worry about the piano. They're not with you. It's even better, So that, yeah, I learned a lot from that experience playing for him. And then we start looking for music and I was just like, we have to do this more. And then with the Gardel piece, he was born in Toulouse, where my family live in right now. It's kind of funny. But I heard actually it was a YouTube video. You can check it out. It's actually cool. Of celebration of Jean-Marc Rollet's 80th birthday. And with two of his former students playing, Daniel Marie and Tom Pasquier. And they played those pieces. And I was like, oh, I have to contact them and see if I can find the music. And so the pianist had written something, but not really the way it's written for us. And so we kind of reinterpreted it our own way. But it's a great pairing with the Piazzolla.
Those two pieces were just perfect to pair.
Very cool. I was going to ask about how these particular arrangements came to be or how written down or not written down all of this is, because you don't know listening, you're just enjoying this experience. Like, how did what we hear on the album kind of take shape?
I think we should hand that to Victor because I love his part and it's like, Victor, tell us how you did it.
A lot of it is it's like a jam session during rehearsals.
Yeah.
We're playing. Then usually Pascal and Emmanuel, they react really quickly, especially when they don't like something. So I'm just fooling around and then sort of let me try the melody on top. Let me try different chord here on the left hand. And I look for reactions from those two people I'm playing with. And also when we try this out in concerts, you can hear the reactions of the audience if something works or not. And I probably wouldn't do the same tomorrow.
Different. Yeah. And that's
time
what's fun. So much fun too. Yeah.
And I'm not a particularly fanciful improviser. I have to kind of stick with one thing. So once I find it, I try to notate because I like to have everything sort of on paper at some point. So otherwise I'm too free and unplanned. I feel nervous.
Yeah. I would say that from the melody perspective in these pieces, that what I did is I did listen to Gardel singing them. And when we were in the rehearsals, I started changing the rhythms because, you'd have something that goes Dee da 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 dee da. So it all works
Yeah.
with those words. So like Victor, I think each rehearsal I would just try something different until we got something. And I wrote some of it down and then some of it I left to chance. And yeah, if you listen to the different takes on the album when we were putting it all together, I remember there was something that happened somewhere and I was like, where'd that go? We got to search for that really good take, or Victor went nuts or so we had to go through that because it's great to have a audio engineer, but they're looking for certain kind of perfection, and maybe we wanted a little bit of unusual kinds of things to make it into the final cut. So yeah, definitely a lot of experimentation and a lot of concerts. We played a lot of local concerts in the Boston area. So we had a lot of opportunity to get it all ready for those sessions.
It's such a cool art form, just the world of tango. And I grew up in South Dakota, not known for its tango culture. We had lots of polka. Talking to some of my friends that play tango, sometimes you're playing and people are dancing, sometimes it's like a more formal concert. And then I remember, I probably have the set list here on my iPad, but the lead sheets or whatever you want to call them that I got for these tunes, how square they look compared to what I was hearing.
Right.
Just like you're describing, Emmanuel, it's like eighth note, eighth
Yeah.
note, eighth note. And then you're like, no, not at all, when you actually get into
No.
it.
Yeah. Absolutely. I guess it's kind of assumed you know what to do with it. And I think, like Victor say, this collaboration of responding to each other. He does try something. Was like, ooh, yeah, I'll do that, but also as well in the melody, and so it makes a bit. It's constantly this dialogue between all three of us, which is so exciting.
But we do have something that Victor doesn't have, and that's the ability to bend those notes,
Yeah, yeah.
and just make them,
Yeah.
and all those kinds of, when you're doing rubato to at the same time have a portamento slide just the right way, when you're changing sections or something, and that ability to bend the notes or give a little bit of grit. On one of the albums, there's one place where we added in some, I guess, a Ponticello. That's in number 4 of the 5 tangos. There's this, we throw in some serious Ponticello. But that's fun. Victor, I don't know how to get you Ponticello pedal. We'll have to figure that out. No, I want to say something. If you're listening, Jason, when you listen to the album, there's a place where Victor goes into the body of the piano and strums.
Yeah, that's very
That
cool.
we were just blown away when he first did that. I was like, oh, you can do that. What's that? And then, yeah, all that percussion and the spring of the Four Seasons. He went on the outside of the piano. We got rid of all of this piano accompaniment, like the usual ostinato at the beginning. He's like, no, I'm a percussionist. And off he went. We're like, okay, Victor.
It's like in the Kicho as well, the faster part.
So cool how we all kind of play the role of percussionist when playing tango to some degree. There's so many similarities, but so many differences also to jazz, and like that,
Yeah.
and how particularly fun, just as a bass player, how fun that is. I remember talking to Pablo Aslan, who's a great tango player in New York City, and I think I asked him what his frequency of bow rehairs was, and he just started laughing. Because we can really do some damage as the bass players.
Well, I've been shredding a little bit. It's wrecked a couple of years for sure. But if I have anything where I've got to hit, I will use it as carbon fiber bow.
Yeah.
And speaking about Pablo Eslan, that was like the first time we ever played.
Yes, you for two basses, and
two basses, and we just grabbed
Shared a
it. That's a nice piece. So maybe we'll bring that to a concert soon.
Well, something I admire about him, and I admire about the three of you too, is like, you sort of have this image of the traditional tango instrumentation, and a lot of his projects are really kind of taking the spirit of tango, but kind of like really experimenting. He had this great album he did a few years ago with a string quartet, and the whole idea was to do it kind of like a movie. Like these things could never happen in real life. It was like, which I think is kind of an interesting way to approach a project. And then the cello, bass, piano is not the traditional tango ensemble. We can safely say the spirit is just there, and the melody, and the I'm not missing anything listening to the three of you, and that's part of the cool thing about the flexibility of maybe a similarity to jazz. I can hear like a guitar bass duo, or I could hear a big band, or I can really enjoy whatever that instrumentation happens to be.
And Piazzolla definitely got influenced by jazz. When he was a kid, they lived in New York. So he heard the jazz, he heard the classical, and he heard klezmer and all this music was all around him. His father played Gardel music every night. He heard that every day as a child. So I think he just got influenced by all of that. Yeah.
Also, Jason, I've got to say something. A big compliment to the bass, and that is I played these pieces, the Four Seasons of Buenos Aires, and the trio version with violin and cello, and
And
there's-
piano.
and piano. And there's a deepness that comes with playing with the bass.
Oh, sure.
It's just unbelievable. It just makes the whole thing so rich. It's like taking, I don't know, it's like taking chocolate milk and putting cream in it and whipped cream on top. It's like all of a sudden everything is so rich and deep and fundamentally changed somehow. I love the combination. I would much rather do it that way, to be honest. So
I was actually at switching genres. I was at a bluegrass concert about a month ago, and the opening band, the bass player was late. So they were playing, and I'm like, something's missing. And then the bass player comes running in, plugs it in, and then we're like, and now we're
the music just began.
That's very funny.
No, I love it. And then also, I mean, I do love being up in this higher part of the cello. And Jason, you probably know this, that we're now performing standing up. And Pascale will say I have bassist envy because I invented this thing to stand up called a tech stand. So now we're playing exclusively that way. And at the festival, at the first concert, we played the 5 tangos. And people came up, and some people in the audience didn't even know because they maybe don't go to a lot of classical concerts.
So they thought it was
They thought
normal.
it was totally normal. And all the students were like, oh my God, what is this? The cellists are all checking it out. But what's nice about that is it brings us even closer together. It gets me out of her. I don't know, like when we play together, it's just a better blend. It goes into the room. I don't get in her way as much and vice
can
versa.
connect better.
There's definitely more connectivity being, standing. When you're sitting, when I'm sitting down and she's gonna look down here.
Yeah.
Even if you put a cello on a platform, it's different. So that's been an exciting thing, doing these things, playing these kinds of arrangements, being up in the violin range. When you're standing up, actually, it's easier to get up there. On a cello, it's sort of you dominate the instrument more. On the bass, you've got a lot of wood in front of you, but when you're standing with a cello, there's just nothing. You just go right above it. It's kind of cool.
What an interesting experience. And yeah, that's a great point about the point of just like the eye level or whatever. We have a cello bass duo here in San Francisco, a couple of the symphony members, Amos Yang and then Charles
Oh, we
Chandler
know
on the
them.
basses. Yeah, they
Yes.
call themselves Tulo, which is a great name. And they were just playing last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever our bass camp was. But yeah, that is a good point. And then just being like chair bound, you're not actually, you just discovered, but like that is it is interesting how just like the act of standing changes your communication and we bass players are switch hitting all the time, and I was one of those players that couldn't play unless there was a stool, and I got so sick and tired of playing like a fourth grader that I trained myself to stand, and now I always practice standing and play solo standing, and it's been really interesting how that I feel like I have a hard time saying what I want to say when I'm on that stool. Maybe to blend in with the San Francisco Symphony, that's cool. But like in a solo context, I really connect with standing these days. I don't know if anybody stands on maybe like a pop band on the keyboard, but I guess maybe that tradition will take a while to change.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Jason. I love playing standing. It gives me that certain freedom that it's much harder for me sitting. It's different. I just feel I can shift my weight. I can move my feet. It's so much. It just gives me that freedom. And for tango, I think it's perfect.
And I've got to say something. We just started as a couple learning to do ballroom dance. Okay.
Oh.
Yes. True.
I've been threatening my wife that we were going to try to learn that, but it hasn't happened yet.
Oh, it's so much fun.
Well, we actually had our first performance after only been studying since November. We went and we performed a routine. Our dance teacher was like, "You can do this." Somehow we did it. But what I can tell you is fundamentally changed the way that I've played standing up, because you can dance and you can move from foot to foot and you can really, swing with the music. And then also another little wrinkle in the equation for me was I'm using an iPad a lot now. I play with a lot of groups and everyone's using iPads, people saying, sorry, no cello part, read off the score or whatever. And so when I'm doing that now, all of a sudden I have no trouble. I'm like turning a page, moving around, and it's like no big deal. And I kind of attribute that to the dance. It just got this upper part of me totally freed up. And I've
And it's
had
also,
help.
yeah, and
She's
also
helping.
I think when you, as a musician, we're not taught to really to move much, and we are staying in one place. And in dance, you have to move in space, which and time and space. You have to really be aware of both. And I find personally that it's when I studied years ago when I was in my 20s, I did some jazz dancing, and it really improved my rhythm like crazy. I couldn't believe it was a really game changer. It was amazing.
Well, you
Sorry.
reminded me of Sue Wolf is a bass player in the San Diego Symphony out here in California,
Yes.
and she is really into dance. And I've been at some bass festivals where she's doing a whole class on movement in the bass and getting
Right.
people to dance. And I've got some great videos from years ago of all these stiff students kind of getting them to loosen up. But yeah, that's really interesting that you can feel that bleeding into your actual musical performance as well.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I always dance. I love dancing and singing too. I find it's really helps my teaching. I make my students sing quite a bit.
And Jason, there was a lesson with our dance teacher, and he was showing me how to dance with Pascale and hold her in such a way that I was using the whole weight of my body to bring her into a turn or something like that. And then I realized, I could apply this to the cello while standing because you don't have your knees anymore. And so I needed to use the weight of the instrument and going back and forth. It really just like
Yeah.
changed everything. I wasn't expecting it to do that sort of thing. And like I said, the certain coordination, like I was messing up all my page turns at first with the pedal, and it just changed everything.
Yeah.
And also the rhythm, like Pascal's talking about, when I was learning to do, we were doing bachata and I get off with the beat and we were doing salsa. And then all of a sudden after a while, I was like, no, I can do this. I can feel that connection with your ears and your feet. And then all of a sudden, boom, you got it. So I think it helped with the rhythm,
Yeah.
no doubt.
We should all probably take some dance classes.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
I think every musician should learn to sing, dance, and play piano before they do anything else. That's
Totally. Wow. And that's going to be interesting, Emmanuel, going back to, because I'm sure you are not, you probably sit down as well to play cello sometimes, or if you're not.
One of the concerts here when I started, now let me just, no names. One of the musicians said, yeah, well, I don't know, let's sit down. So I did. But then later in the week, he was like, let's stand up.
Oh, that's so,
So-
that's so, I feel
So yeah,
I know
I'm down. I'm
Oh,
ready.
cool.
I'm prepared either way.
I'm sure. Well, I'm sure it's got to if you do sit back down, like there's certain like body mapping lessons you probably learn standing that can just.
Right.
I
can
find
apply-
that standing and sitting
Totally.
as a bass player, it just kind of
Mhm.
like if
Mhm.
things feel a little off, stand up and you'll probably figure it out.
Right.
Well, I love the album, and just a really delightful listen, and it looks like it's available everywhere. I was listening to it on Apple Music, but it looks like it's out on Spotify and everywhere. So I will make sure
Yes.
to link up to that. It sounds like it's getting a great reception. Go check it out. It'll make you want to go spend time playing tango because it's just such a fabulous art form to get into, and what you three have put together is really cool.